Welcome, Gunrunner.
This video is brought to you by a Compendium of Sega Master System games Volume 1 by Kieran Hawken and AG Books. This full colour book features over 250 game reviews, developer interviews, fun facts and trivia, personal stories, and is the ultimate companion to Sega's 8-bit console. It's available in both hardback and paperback editions and can be purchased worldwide from all leading bookstores including Amazon, WH Smith's, Waterstones, Barnes & Noble and Wordery. So what are you waiting for? Get your copy today! Despite its huge success in places like Europe, Korea and South America, the Sega Master System very much seems to live in the Nintendo Entertainment System's shadow, which I've always felt is very unfair, as it's undoubtedly the more powerful console. Many people always point to the more populated games library of the NES as a reason why, but again, I always feel that the SMS gets a raw deal here, as its catalogue is much better than many people give it credit for. So with this video, I hope to change the consensus somewhat by presenting 10 amazing games that are exclusive to Sega's 8-bit system. Now it's well known that many of the Master System's best games also ended up appearing on the handheld Sega Game Gear, mainly thanks to the near identical hardware, and indeed a large portion of the console's catalogue was also games ported down from its 16-bit sibling the Mega Drive. But all the games in this list are totally exclusive to the Master System. They not only never appeared on any other Sega console, but didn't appear on any other home system full stop. I haven't presented these titles in any specific order, so you better line them all up, get playing, and see which ones you like the best.
Sega challenges you with the ultimate video game, the Sega Master System.
Hang on!
With more accurate control, more detailed graphics, more levels of play.
Awesome!
The Sega Master System comes with power-based 2 control pads, light phaser, and 2 great video games, Hang On and Safari Hunt.
Gotcha!
And with other games like Rambo, OutRun, and Choplifter, the excitement never stops. The Sega Master System. The challenge will always be there.
The story behind the Cyber Shinobi is quite a confusing one, because the game is also referred to as Shinobi Part 2, which would be fine until you consider that Shadow Dancer is widely regarded as a sequel to the famous arcade game, and this game actually represents the third Shinobi title on the Master System, after a port of the original and Alex Kidd in Shinobi World. Initial impressions of the game suggest it's very much more of the same, but once you start playing the game you'll notice a few subtle differences. The Cyber Shinobi has much more focus on the fighting than its predecessor, with you having to defeat the enemies you encounter before you can progress, like a traditional scrolling beat 'em up. You also have 4 separate gauges for your ninja, the standard life bar, magic meter, weapon power and attack power. By collecting icons you can build these up to help keep the grandson of Joe Musashi alive and improve his offensive abilities. As before, your magic attacks are best kept in reserve for the huge end of level bosses. The Master System not only has its own exclusive Shinobi game, it's also a very good one too. The Master System isn't a console that's particularly well known for its shoot-em-ups, but it's actually got a number of very good ones, with Bomber Raid being one of the prime examples. This one seems to have been quite heavily inspired by the Capcom arcade game 1942. You're in a World War II style fighter as you fly over land and sea taking out the enemies, collecting the power-ups and defeating the end of level bosses. Just like its more famous inspiration, you can collect smaller planes that fly alongside you and increase your firepower. A lot of the enemies, including the large fighters and huge battleships, will seem pretty familiar too. Okay, so it's pretty clear that Bomber Raid is far from an original game, but it's just so well executed in every single department. There is very little graphical flicker, something that really plagues a lot of Master System games, and if you're lucky enough to own a Japanese console, or indeed an FM module, then you can benefit from enhanced audio too, although the standard sound is actually pretty good also. I'll never understand why none of the home console versions of Ninja Gaiden are ports of the arcade game. Instead, the various coders decided to create some kind of generic platform-based game using the same name. Tecmo's original Ninja Gaiden coin-op, known as Shadow Warriors in Europe, was a superb scrolling beat-em-up starring a backflipping ninja called Ryo Hayabusa, who would later go on to star in the Dead or Alive games. The SMS game features the same character, but instead of an all-action scrolling beat-em-up, we have a fast action platformer with some fighting elements included. All you do here is run around each level jumping on platforms, taking out enemies and collecting the items. You have a sword and shurikens at your disposal, and these can be upgraded by collecting the power-ups. In many ways this is similar to the NES version in style, but the levels are totally different, and gone are the annoying one-hit kills. Instead you have a power bar that goes down when you're hit and can be replenished. This makes it a much better game. When you also factor in some really attractive graphics and competent sound, it's not hard to see which the better iteration is. Known under the title Nazca 88, The Golden Road to Paradise in Japan, in this one the player takes control of a kid named Nino, an adventurer who must traverse a hazard-filled maze in search of treasure. Whilst the original Japanese version depicts the adventure in the ancient land of Nazca, the story and title were later adapted to an Aztec theme for the international releases. However, elements of the former culture, including the famous Nazca lines, can still be seen in the game. The player is not the only one in search of those treasures either. There are also 3 other adventurers that are controlled by the computer who will try to foil his plans. To finish the game you must explore 10 different lands including the jungle, desert, Aztec ruins and underground caves. As you go you can arm yourself with many different weapons including a bow and arrow, sword and fireballs. One clever feature is that the competing adventurers can actually be bribed with vast amounts of gold to join you and actually help you on your quest. Aztec Adventure has many RPG-like elements without ever going deep enough to alienate arcade-style gamers, giving it lots of universal appeal. Not many people seem to know that Zillion is actually based on a Japanese anime series of the same name that is largely unknown in the West. With that in mind, it actually seems quite strange that it wasn't repurposed for the West in some way, shape or form. What is even stranger is that the game was also used to heavily promote the Sega Light Phaser, with adverts showing the main character holding it, despite the fact that this game can't actually be used with it. Another interesting feature about Zillion is that it also features Opa Opa from Fantasy Zone in a supporting role. A run and gun styled arcade adventure, Zillion is often called the Master System's answer to Metroid, but it actually has far more in common with Epyx's Impossible Mission. In fact, if you take away the shooting elements, it's remarkably close indeed with the same style of gameplay. Use a lift to move around the vast underground fortress and search computers to find the information you need to destroy it and escape. You'll need to jump across platforms, avoid booby traps, find security passes and even activate programs in order to succeed. If you like arcade adventures, then you'll love Zillion, even if you're not familiar with the subject matter. Released exclusively in Europe, Double Hawk has often been described as the Master System's answer to Tad Corporation's hit arcade game Cabal. And to be honest, it's a pretty fair comparison, as the game features almost identical gameplay. Cabal changed things up from the usual Operation Wolf clones by being a fixed screen game viewed from a third-person viewpoint, meaning you had to move your character as well as the crosshair, and Double Hawk is exactly the same. This means you can only get killed by the enemy actually hitting the body of your character, rather than shots hitting you anywhere on the screen. They also copied the level structure too, with each stage comprising of several separate screens with a common theme that end in a boss battle. The plagiarism doesn't end there though, as we also have a very similar power-up system, destructible scenery, and perhaps best of all, a simultaneous two-player mode. For the character designs they chose a different inspiration however, with Player 1 appearing to be a Rambo rip-off and Player 2 looking suspiciously like Arnie from Commando. In summary, Double Hawk is an incredibly enjoyable copy of an already excellent game and a real hidden gem for the SMS. Whereas the first Power Strike game for the Master System was nothing more than a Western rebrand of Compul's classic shooter Aleste, Power Strike 2 is actually a totally new and original sequel that was designed specifically for the Sega Master System. Don't confuse this title with Power Strike 2 on the Game Gear either, as despite sharing the same name they are totally different games, with the handheld title being a sequel to GG Aleste. It's also regarded as one of the rarest and most sought after games on the console due to its late and very limited release. The game is basically more of the same, which is certainly no bad thing, with some slight adaptations made to the power-up system that actually gives you increased firepower by way of a charged shot. Like the first game, each level is set over a lush vertically scrolling backdrop that ends in a fixed screen boss battle. These stunning visuals really make the game stand out from the mostly black backgrounds of many similar games. The sprites also look superb, and there is surprisingly little flicker considering how much is happening on the screen. It might be a pricey game to pick up, but it's certainly worth it, as Power Strike 2 is undoubtedly one of the best games on the SMS. Psycho Fox is widely regarded as one of the best platformer games available for the Master System, and it's easy to see why, as its cute cast makes the game immediately attractive. As I just alluded to, the game not only stars a crazy fox, but also a bunch of his friends too, including a hippopotamus, monkey and tiger, each of which has their own special ability. The game itself is generally a pretty standard side-scrolling platformer, but the key gimmick, as it were, is the ability to transform into your friends for different parts of the game. Each character has their own set of unique skills that become useful in different situations. For example, the ability to jump much higher, run faster, or destroy otherwise indestructible objects. You need to work out the best way to complete each level using these unique skills. You start off with the ability to punch enemies, but can later pick up a boomerang-like bird, which makes things much easier. It's not hard to see why this game has the reputation that it does. It still ranks up there amongst the Master System's very best games. I think it's fair to say that Battle OutRun is the red-headed stepchild of the OutRun family. One of the main reasons for this is that the game is quite a big departure from the original. Basically, Battle OutRun is Sega's attempt to copy Taito's hugely popular Chase HQ arcade game, which would rather ironically appear on the Master System just a year later. The start of the game seems pretty familiar, with you controlling the red Ferrari F40 from Turbo OutRun, but then you notice the clear theft of ideas from Chase HQ as you are tasked with apprehending a criminal and running him off the road. Not only this though, you're also equipped with a limited amount of nitro boost too, though to be fair this was also a feature of Turbo OutRun, so could have been taken from either game. One new feature though that makes it different to Chase HQ is the appearance of upgrade trucks, which have clearly been taken from the classic Bally Midway arcade game Spy Hunter. Just as you did in that game, you drive into the back of them before they speed off and grab useful improvements such as new tyres, better engines and a tougher chassis. It might get a bad rap in some parts, but I found Battle OutRun to be a highly enjoyable racer. when talking about beloved mascots from the 8-bit years, Alex Kidd is always one of the first to get mentioned, until a certain blue hedgehog came along, that is. Of all of those, Miracle World is without doubt the most highly regarded, and so it had to be the last game on this list. Now many people will argue that this is because it's the best game in the series. I would counter that the title being built into the original models of the Master System 2 console also had a lot to do with the game's popularity. In fact, as proof most people played it this way, genuine cartridge versions of Alex Kidd in Miracle World are actually very hard to find. The game itself is often compared to Super Mario Bros. On the rival NES, though perhaps unfairly, as Miracle World has plenty of its own tricks up its sleeve. Aside from the standard platforming mechanics, this game also adds things like a shop system where you can buy useful items using the money you collect, puzzle elements, and more varied stages that include ones where you fly, as well as the standard jump and run style. This definitely earns its place in the upper echelons of the SMS platformer hierarchy.
Hey Joey, so you didn't get your paws on a Master System 2 this Christmas? Why worry? They're still less than £60.
To be this good, take Sega.
And that rounds up my look at the best exclusives available for the Sega Master System. Are there any others you can think of that should have made the list? Or do you disagree with any of the entries that I did include? As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts and views, so get typing in that comments section. Before I go though, I must thank all of my loyal patrons for continuing to support my channel and make videos like this possible. However, I must give special thanks to the following patrons in particular for their much appreciated pledges: Mitchell Valentino, James Taylor, Neptune, Chaotic, Seth Robinson, Carl Olsen, Dos Gamerman, Tiago Piera dos Santos Silva and Electron Star Collapse. If you also want to help support all my creative endeavours, including this YouTube channel, then please go and check out my Patreon right now. You can get access to host extra content, including downloads, exclusive videos, creative insights and much more besides. I've been the Laird, I thank you for watching and I'll see you all again for another video very soon.